Welcome to the dark side of BEASTwriter. I am your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we are going to be breaking down the top unrestricted free agents when it comes to the AFC West. I know some of you guys have been asking me, what's the rundown when I cover all 32? I'm going to give you the lowdown on exactly how I see this thing playing out. You know, we talk about the Las Vegas Raiders, and obviously they're the hottest team right now, aside from the Kansas City Chiefs, Chargers, Denver Broncos, because the AFC West is just the talk of the town right now. I mean, everybody's in the AFC West, and that's just kind of how it is. So that's the storyline of 2022. We're going to break down the headlines, exactly what I expect moving forward, why these players are a scheme fit for that system, and why those players were brought in the first place based on the valuation versus evaluation process when I break down my grades. So we go ahead. Before we go and get started, I just want to say mahalo to each and every one of you for subscribing to my channel. Just be sure to turn on and flip on the bell notifications and give it a thumbs up, guys. If you guys like my content, please share it. I mean, it's on Twitter right now. It's on YouTube. It's on Instagram. Really not on Instagram. I'm joking. But it's on Facebook Live. We are doing this live. So share this stuff. If you like it, share it. Odds are, if you like it, some of your friends or family members will like it too. And so that's kind of how the exposure is going to grow and how we're going to build this thing up in the DOB family. For those who are new to following my channel, football and fitness is what we do. That's why you see that barbell there. I bodybuild. I compete. That's the other part of my 9 to 5. So when I grind it out for 16, 18, 20 hours a day, I really grind it out for 16, 18, 20 hours a day. And aside from just coming on and doing this live stream, it's not as easy as it looks. There's a lot of prep time that goes into it. There's a lot of legwork that goes into it. And also, again, in order to formulate my analysis, you have to grade the snap. You can't grade the box score, right? And I say don't be a box score reader, and I hate when people do that. Hate's a strong word, but I hate it. Anybody who grades off a box score, you're doing yourself a disservice and giving your followers a disservice answer, because you're not really – that's a lazy take of how to analyze film, how to analyze players, and how to analyze the evaluation process when it comes to the player. So if you're going to criticize or praise the player, I always say have the decency and respect for the player to grade at least every single snap. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And we have some comments coming in. And again, thank you, Daniel Kim. You're going to be a moderator on here. What's up, G's already a moderator. My man, JP, Arizona Cardinals fan, is always my day one, A1, and he is going to be moderating as well. So we have a lot of moderators in here to keep out the trolls, because as you know, trolls happen all the time, every day here in the DOB. All right, so let's not waste any more time. We're going to go ahead and talk about it. I'm going to pull up these banners here. We're going to talk about my top 5 unrestricted free agents when it comes to breaking down the AFC West. All right, let's start with J.C. Jackson from the Los Angeles Chargers, right? J.C. Jackson's out. Obviously, he's having a procedural done on his ankle, but nonetheless, to make sure that ticker's up, nonetheless, he is a good player, and all-pro player at that. You know, I'd say grade the snap, right? For the last 3 years, I graded J.C. Jackson's snap rate. I graded his snap count. I graded pre-snap to post-snap of the grade based on the cover shell and rules of engagement and all that blah, 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 right? So here's a guy. What's the background on J.C. Jackson? People who know, he came out of nowhere. Not really. All right, he's 5'10", 201 pounds, came out of Maryland. Before that, he was a transfer from Florida. All right, so you guys got to know the dynamic there. So during that process, he kind of was on the outside looking in because of whatever the case may be. Not going to go into it, but whatever. You guys can do your own research on that. But in 2021, he was graded my number 1 cornerback, my number 1 boundary cornerback in the entire NFL. Yes, even better than Jalen Ramsey. Graded, not ranked. Graded. So he graded at a 7.9 out of a 10. The cutoff for a Pro Bowl player is 6.5 in my grading system. So when you do the legwork on that and you grade every single snap, which I did, in fact, for transparency purposes, I graded 14 of 17 of his games, omitting only weeks 1, 16, and 17. So if you met weeks 1, 16, and 17, this is his stat line based on my grading system. He was targeted 76 times for 36 completions for 459 yards. All right. Gave up 2 touchdowns. Only 2 touchdowns he gave up last year. Came up with 7 interceptions in my grading system. Again, we're omitting weeks 1, 16, and 17. Had 14 pass breakups for a quarterback passer rating of 37.1. You don't think that's a good stat line? Hello, that is a great stat line. And a lot of these defensive coordinators, they also play the cover shells that are required or asked of them. Like whether it be a cover 1, cover 3, cover 2, whatever the case may be. And then you can roll over cover 5, sky coverage, cloud coverage. We can talk about all the different rules of engagement off those cover shells. Quarters coverage, yeah, that happens, few and far between, but mostly it's a cover 2, cover 3, and then you have a mixed match in between. All right. So with that being said, J.C. Jackson went ahead and balled out of control in New England. And there's no way that New England was going to keep him, right? And I said it, I was like, J.C. Jackson is probably going to be gone. Well, he inked a 5-year, $82.5 million contract with the Los Angeles Chargers, right? And that's $16.5 million APY, which makes him the 9th highest paid boundary cornerback in the entire NFL. Can you really trust Michael Davis or Chris Harris from last year's boundary cornerbacks to be the starters going into this year, especially with the AFC West doing their due diligence and getting guys like Devontae Adams in there, getting guys like JuJu Smith-Schuster in there? No, you're kidding. Absolutely not. So you need a shutdown cornerback, and that's exactly what J.C. Jackson brings to the table. He's a true shutdown cornerback who understands press technique. That's his forte. He's a press cornerback. He stays square, doesn't open his hips up too early. Again, when you talk about mirror matching downfield, these are the things you look for. A strong cadence in his back pedal. Does he take false steps? No, these are things that that are taught and preached in the Raiders practice. Same things apply. The same rules of engagement apply. All right. So when it comes to fundamentally sound cornerbacks, J.C. Jackson is also known as a ball hawk. I mean, that's cool if you can make a play on the football, but if you can create a turnover off that, that does wonders to your offense, because then it wins at the time of possession, then the ball's in your court. Essentially, that's what happened. In the last 2 years, he has racked up 17 interceptions in the last 2 years. And again, I don't care what people say, oh, he's injured, that's why, blah, blah. No, man, he's a top 5 cornerback in my grading system. Make no mistake about it. Now, he probably won't play week 1 against the Las Vegas Raiders, which bodes well for, obviously, Darren Waller and running down the seams. And, of course, we all know Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, so forth and so forth. But with that being said, you know what you're getting with a guy like J.C. Jackson. And, again, by allowing J.C. Jackson to lock down one cornerback spot, you have to kind of look at how this domino effect plays a role. Who did they draft? They drafted in the second round Asante Samuel Jr. Who did I think the Niners should have drafted? Asante Samuel Jr. Who did they really draft? Aaron Banks, right? And remember I said on this live stream when it was live, and I said, oh, Aaron Banks is going to be a healthy scratch. He's not a scheme fit for that because he's more of a power guy. Oh, PFF grades him at the pass blocking out of New Order. I was like, okay, watch. He's going to be a healthy scratch. They should have went after Asante Samuel Jr. Check the beast receipts. Boom, it checks out. Asante Samuel Jr. rolling for the second year in a row. Now he's going to be playing boundary. And then now who's going to lock up the nickel bowl, the nickel back roll? All right. The AFC West domination is continuing to stay in play because now you have Bryce Callahan moving in to that slot cornerback position. And Bryce Callahan, as you guys know, can play the slot extremely, extremely well. All right. But now you have a game of musical chairs on the Denver Broncos, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later because this is how the AFC West goes in the game of musical chairs as round and round and round we go. All right, so here we go. We're going to go on to the second guy that I like, and that's defensive tackle DJ Jones from the San Francisco 49ers. Here's a guy, 6'1", 319, a 6th-round pick drafted number 198 overall out of Ole Miss. Holla at your boy. All right, this guy is a 2-down run stuffer, but he does add some interior push as an interior rusher. We've seen it with Javon Hargrave. We've seen these bigger defensive tackles, let alone, I call them nose guards because it's kind of like the bigger kind of a defensive tackle in that 315, 320 range. You know, that Vince Wilfork type of guy. Not as big as Vince Wilfork is a big dude, but, you know, not the whole Haloti Nada type of a guy, but, you know, that 315 range, that's kind of where you see DJ Jones fit. And coming out of 2017 as a 6th-round pick, number 198 overall, this is what you get from DJ Jones, right? He graded 8.3 in my grading system, and I graded 15 out of 17 of his games. And I grade every single snap. Mind you, I do the legwork. The only weeks that were omitted in my grading system were weeks 1 and 17, all right? Weeks 9, 12, 16, and 18, which is against the Cardinals, Vikings, Titans, and Rams, he graded 10. 10 out of 10. That's a perfect run grade if you ask me, because I'm not going to grade him on the pass rush department because that's not fair because a lot of times they go 4-2-5 nickel alignment, which means he's not in that play. So I'm not going to penalize the dude if he's not in the game. If you grade every single snap, that kind of makes sense, right? Like you wouldn't grade a player if he's not. Anyways, back to business. The 49ers lose number 1 run defenders in my grading system in back-to-back seasons. In 2019, obviously it was DeForest Buckner. They lose him, right? Going to the Indianapolis Colts, trading him off, which I said in real time that was the worst move that they could make. Hindsight, it was. Check off another beast receipt. And then 2021, they lose DJ Jones. That's back-to-back 2 of the best run defenders in back-to-back years. And then DJ Jones goes off and signs a 3-year, $30 million contract, $10 million APY. Holla at your boy. And this is what you're getting, all right? You're getting a very stout, strong, defensive tackle at the point of attack. He's not scheme dependent, can play in a 4-3 or a 34. As you know, the Broncos are keeping that 34 base from Vic Fangio. Holla at your boy. All right. And he can 2-gap based on the leverage technique that's being asked of him. So he's not just a 1-gap type of a guy. He can 2-gap as well, which means stack and shed, read and react. All right. So that outside shoulder is not going to be covered up a lot of times because it's hard to move DJ Jones off his freaking grass, man. I'm just keeping it 100. And he rarely misses a run fit assignment. Anytime you're a GM and you're looking for a guy, if he's a scheme fit, you look at run fit integrity. And let me tell you, DJ Jones did not make very many errors in run fit integrity. I'm just keeping it 100. He's always in position from box to spill, which makes me believe in my grading system, he's a top 15 to 25 interior defensive lineman as a run defender. So a smart play by the Denver Broncos. George Paton, good job by you for getting DJ Jones. 3-year, $30 million contract. You know he's going to outplay his way in San Francisco, and they just not enough money to go around. You have to prioritize who you're going to prioritize first. And obviously Nick Bosa's coming up and some of these other guys. So Deebo Samuel just got paid. So there's only enough money to go around, John Lynch. I get it. So why the move was made? All right, now let's double down on that. So why did they pick up DJ Jones? Yeah, you spilled all this crap about how good he is. But why was the move made? Well, hello, who did they just get rid of? Guy by the name of Shelby Harris. Traded to the Denver Broncos traded to the Seattle Seahawks. For who? Russell Wilson. So it makes financial sense as to why the Seattle Seahawks and the Denver Broncos and why the Broncos had to make a splash play because they don't have Shelby Harris anymore. He's off to Seattle. See you later. Which again, in the game of musical chairs and round and round and round, they don't have Carlos Dunlap. Or is he? Kansas City Chiefs. Boom. I'm just saying, man, you got to know the dynamics of the other 31 if you're going to talk about the team that you're talking about, which is the Las Vegas Raiders in my case. All right, so the 34 base, the heart and nose of any 3-4 base, you guys know, is that nose tackle. You cannot play a 34 base gap scheme if you don't have a nose tackle who can 2-gap and be a space eater in between the guard center exchange. You just can't. If it's a zero technique or a one-eye technique, whatever the case may be, you have to have that nose tackle. The Steelers had it in 2019 with Javon Hargrave. When he went off to Philadelphia Eagles, they had to switch Tyson Alualu, the Cal product, former first-round pick, and you had to slide him to nose tackle. All right, so it goes. You have to be able to have guys that fit the scheme at the end of the day. All right, and that's why I think DJ Jones brings to the table. All right, next up, we have Denver Broncos. There's a lot of comments coming through. I promise you, I'm going to get to your comments. I'm going to get to your questions. Denver Broncos did it again. Oops, I did it again. Britney Spears, nose tackle. Nickelback, K'Wan Williams, one of my favorite players coming out of this unrestricted free agency market. Why? He's a 2014, let's do some background check. Okay? 2014 undrafted rookie free agent from the Cleveland Browns, kind of worked his way around a few teams before latching on to the San Francisco 49ers. All right, graded 12 of his 14 games, 12 out of his 14 games, I graded every single snap. He missed 3 games in 2021 due to a calf strain, so that can kind of play a role in him getting that second contract or that third contract, whatever the case may be. But he landed with the Denver Broncos. George Paton saw something because he was doing. He's like, man, we have one of the best secondaries in the NFL. We have Pat Surtain, we have Kareem Jackson, we have Justin Simmons, we have Ronald Darby, who just signed last offseason. Woo! But Kyle Fuller was the team's Achilles heels. I said it in my tweets in real time. I said, man, once they signed him to that $9.5 million contract from the Chicago Bears because he was going to be a cap casualty because Ryan Pace needed to make some moves. Then what happened? There was all that Virginia Tech product is going to be that former first-round pick, Pro Bowl player is going to ball out of control. What happened? No, he wasn't. Now he's off to where? The Baltimore Ravens, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So that leaves a game again of musical chairs. So then in comes K'Wan Williams taking on that nickelback role. And again, I already tweeted this out. See, keep up on Beast Receipt. You keep up on all my social media. I'll keep it 100. K'Wan Williams, I said on Raider Nation Radio just 3 days ago with Harry Ruiz. I said K'Wan Williams is used much like Mike Hilton is used with the Pittsburgh Steelers, now with the Cincinnati Bengals, and like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson with the Saints, now with the freaking Philadelphia Eagles, as an extra box defender, and that's how Amik Robinson is going to be used in Patrick Graham's system. A blitzing slot cornerback from the edge, because you don't know we're creating pressure from whichever way. Quarterback's head's going to be like on a freaking swivel, because you don't know where the pressure is coming from. Could be a fire zone blitz. Could be a cornerback blitz. It could be a defensive line dropping in the short area underneath flat. You don't know what's going on because they can do a mix and match of things. I'm just saying Patrick Graham is going to freaking scheme it up how he wants to scheme it up. So it would be a 3-3-5 alignment, 4-2-5, 3-4, 4-3. Don't matter. It's going to be a winning formula, a winning formation. But you have to have the high level of processing to understand exactly the rules of engagement on the back end. And I talked about this on my Twitter earlier today. All right, I talked about how you want to have a 3-by-1. If it's a trips formation to the left or to the right, you always want to have a man advantage. You want to have a box or a triangle on either side. All right, now I'll go ahead and break that down. And some of you guys are like, what the heck is this guy talking about? Well, I'm talking. I'm trying to convey a message to you guys that at the end of the day, in the Raider way, you have to have a high football IQ. If you don't have the high football, even as me as a reporter, I have to have a high football IQ. So it keeps me on my toes. Because if I don't know what I'm seeing, how am I going to report what I'm seeing if I don't know what I'm looking for? It makes no sense at all. So getting back to K'Waun Williams, I love talking football if you guys haven't noticed by now. K'Waun Williams, number 24, K'Waun Williams. This is his stat line in grading 12 out of the 14 games. Of course, he missed 3 to a calf strain. He was targeted 57 times, 45 of those going for completions for 317 yards, 0 touchdowns. Pretty good, right? No touchdowns allowed. Kind of going with the whole Ahmad Sauce Gardner, no touchdowns. 1 interception, 3 pass breakups for a quarterback passer rating of 82.5. All right. However, when peeling back layers of the onion to really get to the core, as I always like to say in my podcast, 20 of those 45 completions were good for first downs, which is a success rate of 44.4%. All right. So aside from that, what's going to kill, let's say for layman terms, all right, let's say K'Waun Williams was on the Las Vegas Raiders. All right. You know what Josh McDaniels is probably going to do if he saw K'Waun Williams? He's going to go, and first thing he's going to look, you have to learn how to not lose before you can win. Well, he was penalized 3 times for 51 yards of hitting yardage because he gave up a 40-yard bomb, a 6-yard pass interference penalty, and a 5-yard pass interference penalty. All in all, 51 yards of hitting yardage. You can't give up hidden yardage because at the end of the day, that hidden yardage adds up and can mean the difference between victory and defeat. So K'Waun Williams does have some things he needs to work on. All right. Maybe he needs to play tighter to the sticks. But at the end of the day, I like K'Waun Williams. I like what he brings to the table. He does do a nice job and fighting off those bubble screens. He does a really good job in kind of slipping blocks and making plays in the backfield. And he does a really nice job for a nickel back and taking the proper angle to the ball carrier when they try to bounce it outside. So I really like K'Waun Williams when it's all said and done. And it's not easy playing the nickel back position. I mean, you have to know your spacing. You really do. And then the boundary cornerback, you kind of have a little bit more freedom because you're on the island. And then you also have the sideline as an extra defender. You also have help over the top based on the cover shell and the rules of engagement that apply. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is slot cornerback is not as easy as people make it out to seem. And people say, oh man, like when Hunter Renfrow is in the slot, you better be on your A game. All right, let's go ahead and move on to Kansas City Chiefs. Got to give them some love. All right. We're going to talk about JuJu Smith-Schuster. All right, here's a guy, 6'1", 215 out of Pitt. Right? Drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Coming out of USC. Go Trojans. Victory. Fight on. He's a tough, reliable wide receiver. He's when I graded him, when I was covering the Steelers back in 2019, 2020 with Sports Illustrated, things that I saw in this game, he's like an Anquan. I wouldn't say as good as Anquan Boldin because Anquan Boldin was just built. Anquan Boldin was a linebacker and a wide receiver body. Anquan Boldin was one of my favorite all-time San Francisco 49ers ever. I loved the way Anquan Boldin, I loved covering him. I also loved watching him play. The guy is just a beast in more ways than one. JuJu Smith-Schuster can be that guy, but he's not consistent enough. And I don't know if that's a game of musical chairs because the quarterback, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, yeah, they had Big Ben, but he was kind of inconsistent, right? Let's be honest about that toward the end of his career. Let's talk about when they have Mason Rudolph in there, right? And they had James Washington in there, that dynamic duo. And then you also had Deontay Johnson sprinkled in there. And you had all these different Ray McLeod, who's now off to the San Francisco 49ers as a return man. So we can go down the list of the wide receiver problems that the Steelers were having. The problem is, it's not really a problem. It's more like the offensive line. Because if you look at who they have, I mean, Kevin Dotson, the Raging Cajun, 4th-round pick, but you lose Matt Filer, who's off to who? The Los Angeles Chargers last year, right? So Matt Filer was a guy who can play swing. He can kick into guard. So there's a lot of mix and match. And now you have guys on the interior that Kendrick Green, can we rely on Kendrick Green getting it done? Dan Moore, blindside left tackle. These guys struggled last year in my grading system. I'm just going to keep it 100. Now, I'm not saying they're bad, but I'm just saying they struggled. So let's keep it 100. Everything starts up front. But what I like about JuJu Smith-Schuster is, again, if you look up what the Kansas City Chiefs are trying to do, they lose Tyreek Hill, they lose Byron Pringle, they lose Demarcus Robinson, right? You lose those wide receivers. You have to infuse new talent. Now you get Sky Moore, great. But you get a guy like JuJu Smith-Schuster, who's a veteran. That's even better in my estimation, because now you can teach the younger guys how it's done. I like JuJu Smith-Schuster. I just think he needs a high target share for fantasy football owners. You guys are going to like a guy like JuJu Smith-Schuster. He might be a sleeper. I was getting hit up by my brother-in-law today. I was getting hit up by my cousin today. I was getting hit up by my best friend today. They were asking me about the fantasy football because your drafts are all today. I was like, man, are you guys going to pay me for this? And they're like, come on, dude. I'm related to you. I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to make some money. I'm joking. No, I gave him advice. But at the end of the day, it does take a lot of legwork to kind of figure out exactly if you're a 10-team league, 12-team league, 16-team league, what's the number of waiver transactions that you can get and provide during the course of the season. Is it PPR? Is it half PPR? What standard? Is it a defensive league where you have to pick defensive players? What's the point scoring system on that? Come on, dude. All that plays a role. I'm just saying. And JuJu Smith-Schuster, getting back to JuJu Smith-Schuster, I think that's a good pick because, one, he understands zone coverage. And you know how I know that? Because, one, he finds soft spots in zone coverage, number one. But number two, he was also a former safety. People don't realize that. He came into USC as a safety. So if you're a safety and you're the quarterback of the secondary, you don't think on the flip side of that, you're going to know the rules of engagement on the cover shell. Simple cover shell, whether it be a cover 2 or quarters coverage or quarter, half, cover 6. No, you're going to understand that. So if you're on the flip side of that, then it's kind of just everything in reverse and you know where the weak spots and strengths and weaknesses of those cover shells are. And so that's why I like JuJu Smith-Schuster. I think he's going to thrive in Andy Reid's system. So they signed into a 1-year max deal. I thought it was a good play by them. All right. Good play by them. All right. Now we're going to move on to the last but not least. Is Bilal Nichols up there? Bilal Nichols. I love this guy. Tweeted this guy out back in 2020. Covered him for the last 2 years. All right. He came out of the University of Delaware, right? So he's a 2018 5th-round pick, drafted number 145 by the Chicago Bears. Then Ryan Pace and new Ryan Poles decided to let him walk. Let Hakeem Hicks walk. Let all these other guys, Mario Edwards, who just got picked up today. These guys on the defensive line are no longer with the team. They wanted to go with a younger, but Alex Leatherwood is, but they wanted to go get younger, right? And I get it. I get building a team from the inside out, not the outside in, but I also understand that you want to retain homegrown talent. GM Jay Ziegler did a really good job signing him to a 2-year, $11 million contract. You double down on those gains and you actually look at the evaluation versus evaluation from signing a guy like DJ Jones for a 3-year, $30 million. And I'm not saying that 3-year, $30 million contract is not worth DJ Jones' money, because it is. What I'm saying is if you look at the valuation versus evaluation, the financial snapshot of when comparing those players and what they bring to the table, is the drop-off in production from 2 years to $11 million that much different from 3-year, $30 million? Because let's be honest, both those guys are not interior rushers to where they're going to put up double-digit sacks from the interior. I think it was a good play. Bilal Nichols, I already tweeted this out, is one of the most underrated signings that in the entire free agency. And again, he's a Delaware product coming from the FCS, not the FBS. So now you're kind of, again, from a scouting perspective, you have to kind of gauge from FCS talent to the FBS talent, from FBS talent to the SEC talent, and then Power 5 and so forth, right? And then kind of gauge how they're going to compare and how they're going to project at the next level. It's hard enough to do it, when you're comparing Power 5 to Power 5. But at the end of the day, it's even more of a challenge because you don't know. You can be dominating in the MAC. You could be dominating in the Big Sky. You could be dominating in some of these other smaller school conferences, but how does that translate onto the field when you go up against these bigger top Power 5 conferences? It's a really hard thing to do. And if you have the ability to do that, man, that's crazy. So again, we talk about the Delaware product. being one of only 5 players currently in the NFL. Yes, that's right. That's right. There's only 5 Delaware players currently in the NFL. And one of those guys, if I'm not mistaken, is Nasir Adderley, the free safety from the Los Angeles Chargers. And I was really high on Adderley coming out. I loved his ball skills when I scouted him and evaluated his game and then ran the grades on where I thought he might be picked up. You guys can check the Beast receipts on that. But then again, you have guys like Troy Reader. You have guys like Nick Boyle. You have guys like freaking Joe Flacco. Those are the remaining Delaware products. So there's few and far between when it comes to Delaware products. But at the end of the day, you guys remember Rich Gannon. He was also a Delaware product. So past meets future, or future meets past. And I think Bilal Nichols is going to be a huge win for 2022 if he can stay healthy. Again, they're transitioning to a 34 base. I don't care what Coach Graham says. They're transitioning to 34 base. He's 6'4", 306. The guy is built, all right? He's strong as a 2-gap space eater, just like DJ Jones was. He's not much of a disruptive interior rusher, like I said, but he more than makes up for it as a pure pocket pusher. So he can push the pocket. Will he be able to generate pressure by himself organically? I would say I'm not so sure. But that nonstop motor allows him to always be in the play at all times. And that's what I like about him. And in any 3-4 base scheme, you need to be able to drop your anchor, right? When I say drop your anchor, allowing to reset the line of scrimmage versus double teams. You see a lot of guys in that 34 base or even in a 1-gap system, they don't get necessarily thrown off their grass, but they can get sealed off. They are not unable to come back into the play. There's a lot of different things that you see offensive linemen, defensive linemen, when you go down and kind of compare how they match up in the trenches, which guys can actually get it and which guys don't. Do they just occupy space just to occupy space? I mean, I can do that. Just put me as a 3 technique and I can just do this and stand still and that's it. Like, center doesn't have to do anything. The guard doesn't have to do anything. I'm just eating space. I could lay down like this and just eat space. But can you penetrate? Can you 2-gap? Can you read and react and flush plays back inside to your help? From box to spill. These are things we look for, or at least I look for, when evaluating game film. All right. So again, it's crucial for a 2-gap system that you're able to do all those different elements. And new GM Ryan Poles let Nichols walk. A bad mistake, in my opinion. I like Ryan Poles coming from the Brett Veach tree from the Kansas City Chiefs. I think he's good, former offensive lineman. I think that's why he saw something in Alex Leatherwood. Said, you know what? I was a former offensive lineman. I can get the best out of this guy because I was a former offensive lineman, and I'm not going to give up on Alex Leatherwood just yet. Let's claim him off waivers and eat that $5.9 million of salary cap. Which, in my opinion, I think Alex Leatherwood is suited for guard. I said it in real time. Again, another live stream when I was on here as the draft was unfolding. I say, nah, man, he's a guard. And that was a reach. And so here we are today. But that's not GM Dave Ziegler's fault because he didn't draft him. That was a Mayock Gruden pick. I don't care. Put the blame on whoever did. I don't care. They're both there. They're both there. So, and in simplest form, getting back to Bilal Nichols, I think he's one of the most underrated players in this draft, in this free agent class. And Raider Nation is going to be happy with what they have there. Let's get to some of your questions. Gosh, I can't believe I said that all in one breath without taking my coffee. I'm drinking coffee at 8:48. But I wouldn't want it any other way. Daniel Kim says, let's get it. Nightmare Cortez says, salute, Ryan. Daniel Kim says, glad you found a moderator for the lies. Yeah. Daniel Kim, you're a moderator too. I know you hit me up on DM. I get DMs on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. All right. Let them know if you need another one or just make me one. Okay. I'm going to make you one. Let's just do that. All right. Did you guys see that game? I was laughing right before we hopped on because did you see that LSU just missed the extra point? Like, he did everything but miss the extra point. It came down fundamentals. As a coach, that would drive you nuts. But I'm a Roll Tide Roll fan, so I'm not laughing inside because I'm not like that. I'm not like an evil person like that. I would be very frustrated if I was LSU because I was just like, damn, dude. It's an extra point. You might as well just go for 2-point conversion. What are we doing? I don't know. I thought that was crazy. All right. So some of you guys, Birdman Radio 530 says, I'm listening, B. Jason Mahia says, can't wait to hear your Graham defense breakdown. Yeah, I'm going to break that down. not like I know exactly what's going on, but I have an idea what's going on because obviously you coach the Giants and you just go based on film and what you see and what you know and what you're hearing. And honestly, it's really no different. Like, okay, I take this back. If you don't understand scheme, technique, fundamentals, and how that all plays, how all those parameters play a role in developing your personnel from the ground up, you're really doing yourself a disservice. Like, you have to watch a lot of game film, which I do, whether it be college film like LSU or Alabama. You know, I do that around this time, obviously, because I have to keep up with the draft. When the draft rolls around, there's no drop off in production from that, from NFL, from college. But a lot of the stuff, a lot of the concepts that the NFL uses nowadays comes from college, even comes from high school, to be honest with you. So there's different layers that you can kind of pick and choose your spots and how you want to formulate your defensive scheme. And you can kind of see this, especially with the college game, with a lot of spread formations. And again, the NFL being a pass happy league now, a lot of it's spread now, more times than not, right? Trips formation, a lot of 11 personnel. You know, you don't see the traditional 22 personnel or 21 personnel. The fullback has become obsolete these days. Gone are the days of the Mike Allstott with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Gone are the days of the William Floyds at the San Francisco 49ers, right? Jalen Richard, right? What's going on? What's going on, guys? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? So Zach Crockett, back in the day, didn't he play fullback, running back at one point with the Las Vegas Raiders or then Oakland Raiders? So there's a lot of different things that are going. And if you're not keeping up with the NFL rules, you're really going to be on the outside looking in. And so that's why I think when we talk about Graham's defense, you have to be multiple, right? And you talked about it. Would it be a 3-3-5 alignment, which is 3 down linemen, 3 underneath defenders, and then 3 secondary plays on the back end? Or if it's a 4-2-5, which is standard across the board. When I grade the other 31 other NFL teams, they run a 4-2-5. They take out usually, you know, the run stuffer who really can't push the pocket, and basically just have a lot of linebackers, cornerbacks. And again, if you're trying to scheme it up, how you're trying to scheme it up, you can go heavier or you can go lighter, right? You can go heavier in the box or you can bring a lighter box. If you go lighter box, just know that the offensive line and the offensive coordinator can kind of call an audible and attack that leverage. Meaning, if you're having a 4-2-5 alignment and instead of having 2 linebackers, you have 2 safeties back there, right? In that secondary part, let's just say hypothetically, that's usually doesn't happen, but let's just say hypothetically, then you can just run at those safeties with those linemen, and then they can kind of push the interior and just get free yards up the gut. So I don't know. There's a lot of different mix and match concepts that you can kind of mesh when formulating how you want to use your personnel. But at the end of the day, Patrick Graham's going to scheme it up. There's a lot of rules of engagement, like I talk about when it comes to the secondary. That's why I think Amik Robinson is going to be used in the nickelback role. That's why Jonathan Abram might have a really, really good year this year because he's going to be roaming closer to the line of scrimmage, which does well for his skill set because we all know how he's a liability in pass coverage. I'm just calling it how I see it. But that's not to say that he's the team's Achilles heels. I'm not saying that because I like Jonathan Abram as a box run defender, right? So as long as he can shoulder leverage tackle with the teaching points that Coach Ash and Coach Simmons teach, I think he's on the right track. You know, squeeze through the thighs, wrap up, right? You're being a shoulder leverage tackling team. You got to take your head out of it, right? And so you got to understand how to attack the proper angles, right? We talk about proper angles. I talk about it all the time in my tweets, right? And this is fundamentals. This is technique. This is like football 101. If you don't know how to attack the near hip of the ball carrier, you shouldn't be playing in the NFL. That's like football 101. Like, how can you allow a ball carrier to cut back against the grain when you're supposed to throttle down using the hunt and gather technique? Like, why would you try to over pursue and then just let the guy just kind of cut back against you and say, it's like Matador defense, ole. Like, you should just have a red flag and go, ole, here we go, ole. Like, hey, here you go, ole, go for the home run. Yeah, touchdown, woo, house call. Call me later. You can't do that. You can't do that. Leo Phoenix says, do you have a detailed explanation on your grading system? It would be nice to know how your grading breaks down. I do, but I don't give up my algorithm. I do not give up my algorithm. But just know that the Beast receipts check out, and that's how I formulate my analysis. Leo says, thoughts on Dameon Pierce? Kid's been flying off my screen. Looks like a stud for the Texans. Yeah, that's funny because my brother-in-law just said that. He mentioned he got Dameon Pierce. I said Dameon Pierce is going to be a good find. I like Dameon Pierce. For fantasy owners, PPR, standard, doesn't matter. I like him. I like him a lot. I think he's going to do he's one of those players that kind of comes off the radar. And then people were like, damn, maybe I should have got Dameon Pierce. But I don't know. I mean, we don't know what's going on with the Texans line is. And same thing with the San Francisco 49ers. Like people picking them like, oh man, they're the favorite to win the. Look at their offensive line. Really? Everything starts up front, down in the trenches. And you have quarterback Trey Lance there who's kind of, Now, I'm not saying I don't like Trey Lance. I like Trey Lance. He has all pro potential. He could be the next Pat Mahomes for all I know. But today, with that offensive line, you're going to be doing a lot of checkdowns to the running backs coming out of the flat. You're going to be using George Kittle down the seams. You better be able to, hate to say it, it might be a 1-2 read quarterback at most, and the rest he's just scrambling for his life because the offensive line can't hold up. I'm just calling it how I see it. JP Edward DeDio says, I just had a discussion with another fan about scheme fit and player success. Yes. And I told you I like Trayvon Mullen going to the Arizona Cardinals. I think he has Pro Bowl potential. Can he stay healthy? That's another question. But durability is a concern, although his playmaking ability is not. I like Trayvon Mullen. And when I graded him last year in the small sample size of games that I pulled from, grading every single snap, I saw a Pro Bowl player in my grading system. All right. Leo Phoenix says, I think CJ Stroud is pretty legit. And Anthony Richards from Florida looks like Lamar Jackson type guy. Who's that? That is a loaded question. And I will get to a lot of fantasy football stuff and a lot of questions that you guys have. I will be answering on a separate live stream. I kind of want to categorize it and stay on topic with exactly the Las Vegas Raiders. And we can talk about any questions that you have on a separate live stream, which I'll have. So I know you guys have a lot of questions. I will get those to you. Also, if you guys liking this video, give it a thumbs up. I mean, you guys are watching it. You guys like what I have to provide. Or if you don't, give it a thumbs down. I can care less. The algorithm's going to hit one way or the other. But do me a solid, like it. And if you guys want to send me a super chat or donate a super chat or super sticker, by all means, feel free to do so because your boy definitely could use it. Just saying. So, yeah, if you guys are wondering how to donate to the channel, because some of you guys were hitting me up saying when I posted on my Twitter, like, how did that happen? Well, you guys, there's a money icon on YouTube. Just subscribe to my channel, and then you guys can donate on the super. It's called a super chat or super sticker. Also, there is a donate button. Also, I think it's a heart icon with a hand icon or something like that. Once the video goes live and it's done and the stream ends, or even if it's a static video, you guys can still donate. There's a heart icon in the YouTube channel. You guys can donate there. It's called a super thanks. I think that's what it's called. Super thanks. I don't know. YouTube keeps hitting me up, telling me to explain these things and why I should tell you guys about these things. So I'm just telling you, I'm just listening to YouTube. YouTube says, hey, we think based on what's going on with your channel that XYZ. I'm like, okay, I don't know how this works. And I all I know is I just like talking football. Is that okay? I'm joking. No, super chats and super stickers and super thanks are all awesome. Everything's super. Right? It's just super dandy. Andy Lai said, what's going on, Ryan? Good seeing you again. How would you rank the defenses in the AFC West from worst to best? That's a good question. I can go ahead and break that down to you. I can tell you off the top of my head, I do like the free agency pickups within the AFC West when it comes to the defense. Sebastian Joseph Day, another 34 base guy going to the LA Chargers. So there's going to be no drop off in scheme or him understanding his assignment because, again, down in the trenches, not taking anything away from those guys, but it's pretty simple. It's pretty self-explanatory, especially if it's a read and react solid defense. Just don't get your outside shoulder covered up and be able to two gap. I mean, how hard is that? And then, yes, there's some other leverage techniques that you need to know because there could be some rules of engagement up front that maybe the second level backers need to understand in order to how you play your pre-snap splits. And if the guy's running in motion, then that can kind of change the concepts and how you play your gaps. But at the end of the day, it's kind of the meat and potatoes is just do your job in two gap. But yeah, there's a lot of different dynamics when it comes to the AFC West. I like what the Las Vegas Raiders did. I really do. I do like Jayon Brown. I didn't add him in here, but Jayon Brown to me is a guy who is going to be another one-year deal type of contract type of guy. I mean, 2017 fifth-round pick, if I'm not mistaken, out of UCLA, drafted by the Tennessee Titans. So once his opportunity, and I started watching this kid, right, over at UCLA, and I was like, man, this kid, once Miles Jack went down, because if you guys go out my Twitter, I was all over Miles Jack. I thought this guy could run the ball. He can play special teams. This guy is a football freaking player. Like, I was all over him. But once he went down to injury, I was like, man, this Jayon Brown kid is not bad. 6 foot 231. I remember that because I remember putting this in my notes and being like, this guy, I remember putting, okay, just so you know, I have little, just like the GMs, they have little, oh, this guy has a gold helmet, or this guy has a silver helmet, or this guy has a green dot, a green helmet, green dot. Obviously, I'm joking for the Mike linebacker, but you know, they all have the little keys, if you will. My key is I circled this in red marker. I'm like, this guy's good. This guy is going to be good in a 34 base defense. I'm circling it now. Even though he's light, he's 231, built more like a strong safety than an inside linebacker. But this guy can play the weak side. This guy can be a good weak side linebacker, and he's a good cover guy, obviously, because he has the fluid hips to mirror tight ends down the seams. I like this guy. He's a freaking tackling magnet. I really like Jayon Brown. And I think Jayon Brown is going to be someone that every Raider Nation should get to know, because he's sound in coverage. He's really good in coverage, right? And so when I graded the Tennessee Titans last year, you know, we talk about the Bud Duprees, talk about the Jeffrey Simmons. Yes, I run grades on them. And we talk about some of these Danico Autry, and you can talk, the list goes on, right? We can talk about Kevin Byard. I mean, we can talk about, let's just talk about football, right? Let's talk about Taylor Lewan, okay? Let's talk about offensive line. We can do that too. But when it comes down to it, what exactly does Jayon Brown bring to the table? Again, it's a 34 base defense. It's an inside linebacker. And again, it could be a 4-2-5 alignment. In that 4-2-5 alignment, I don't see Jayon Brown coming off the field. I think he's going to be plugged in there. Now, this is all just a guess, because nothing has been set in stone. We haven't seen exactly anything, because it's all been freaking strictly vanilla in the preseason. But based on my film study, I think Jayon Brown's going to be in at that 4-2-5. I don't think they're going to take him out. Now, Denzel Perryman, you might want to take out in that 4-2-5. No offense to Denzel Perryman. I love Denzel Perryman. I think he should be rewarded with a second contract. But let's be honest, coming out of the University of Miami, which I put out earlier in earlier articles in my Beast receipts, is he is a liability in pass coverage. And when I graded him last year, he was a little bit of liability in pass coverage. That's not to say he can't lay the wood once the ball arrives at the catch point, because he can definitely take anyone out, including myself. But what I'm trying to say is, in the 4-2-5 nickel alignment, when you look at the personnel, you want Jayon Brown and possibly Divine Diablo, another converted safety in there. So now you have basically two safeties manning the middle on that second level. Do you see where I'm going with this, guys? Patrick Graham, Coach Graham, is going to mix and match. But if you understand the dynamics, and again, you have to peel back layers of the onion to kind of understand the concepts and rules of engagement of exactly what's going on. Now, watch this all not happen and it just all smoke and BEASTwriter. Oh, BEASTwriter was so wrong. I could be wrong for all I know. But I'm just saying, this guy is the real deal. And I know that Jayon Brown was dealing with hamstring and knee injuries last year, but in 5 seasons, this guy has been playing lights out. I mean, he has 4 picks, 2 of those going to the house. All right, so this guy can fly, and I'm really excited for Jayon Brown. I don't know what else to say. I like Jayon Brown. I hope you guys like Jayon Brown, because I like Jayon Brown. All right. Orlando Padilla says, do you think LV will beat KC this year? The answer is yes. Wow, that's crazy. I already talked about it on Relevant with my man Sean Salisbury, Tom McManus, Glenn Parker, and Randy Cross. If you guys haven't checked that out, download the Relevant app, because we talk about this on In the Huddle, a show that I host. That's weird. But no, we talked about this, and the question popped up. Hey, what do you guys think about the Kansas City Chiefs? I said, man, I'm not trying to hate. I'm just saying Kansas City Chiefs are not the same team that they once were last year. And people, oh, what do you mean by that? Well, in my grading system, Tyrann Mathieu was the best safety overall. It doesn't matter. Free safety, strong safety, don't matter. He was graded number 1 overall. You let him go. That's your heart and soul. It's not Frank Clark. It's not Chris Jones. All right. It is Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger. You lose that back end, that's it, because he's the quarterback of the secondary. Now you're going to have to roll in a guy like Juan Thornhill, Virginia Tech product, right, who they drafted, I believe, in what round? 2nd round? I believe that's when the tail end of the defensive backs came off in the tail end of the 2nd round. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Juan Thornhill was he had a 40-something inch vertical jump. He off the charts, right? He can play all these different positions. I was high on Juan Thornhill. Check out the Beast receipts. I'm still high on Juan Thornhill. But at the end of the day, is he a Tyrann Mathieu? No, he's not a Tyrann. Who is a Tyrann Mathieu? All right, so if you're GM Brett Veach, was it worth letting a guy like the Honey Badger go? Because let's face it, if he's a strong safety that is just strictly a traditional box safety like a Jonathan Abram, I would be like, okay, let him walk. But he's not. He can disguise coverage pre-snap. He can disguise the cover 2 look and roll back into a cover 1. or vice versa, right? You can do a lot of inverted coverage. And especially when you talk about scheming things up with Tyrann Mathieu, you can do that. You see it a lot of times when I run my grades with Budda Baker, same thing. They utilize him the same way. Derwin James from the LA Chargers, you see him kind of come back and then kind of creep back. So you can kind of see the safety alignment. Minkah Fitzpatrick, although he's a traditional free safety, he can line up in the slot and play the boundary as well. So you look at guys all over the field, and when I run my grades, this is what you see. So you pick little tendencies and exactly based on formation, based on down, based on everything in between. And you can say, hey, look, I don't know. Everyone's saying Tyrann Mathieu lost the stat. I don't see it. I don't see it. I see a guy that's just ascending right now. I don't think he peaked yet. And Eli says, what are some of your predictions for Jonathan Abram and Trayvon? Well, I just gave you some. Trayvon Merrick, to me, Pro Bowl player, Trayvon Merrick. And I don't care. Everyone says, oh, he lack of interception. I don't care. Again, don't grade the box score, grade the snap. And that's what I do. When I graded Trayvon Merrick, smart, takes proper angles to the ball carrier, very fundamentally sound on the back end, very smart. That's the Raider way. If you're not smart, you're not going to play. Simple as that. If you're not smart, you're not going to play. That's the Raiders' cultural identity. You ain't smart, you ain't playing. You don't have a high football IQ, see ya. You don't know what the other team's doing before they do it. That's your fault because you ain't watching enough game film on the freaking down and distance or the formation. Or when that tight end comes across the formation, does a lot of window shopping to kind of go from the weak side to the strong side formation, which kind of offsets. Or if they do a balance formation, a 2x2 set, you got to understand the rules of engagement on that. Like, you have to understand these concepts. Trayvon Merrick understands these concepts. So aside from being fundamentally sound and maybe not getting the interceptions, he gets everyone in position. And when you look at Trayvon Merrick, the professionalism and the maturation process that I've seen when interviewing him, I see a Pro Bowl player. I asked him a simple question. I said, hey, Trayvon, you got my first team all rookie vote last year as a rookie for PFWA. And I said, what are some things, when I graded you, what are some things that you need to work on? And I was thinking for like maybe something that he would actually point out, like a specific thing. But then he, being the smart, professional, mature player, he's like, I need to work on everything. Why? Because you're only as strong as your weakest link. If someone were to ask me that question, hey, Beast, I voted you, whatever, but what are some things you need to work on in being a better beat writer? Well, there's everything. I mean, there's nothing. You always can improve, right? You always can improve. Maybe I can do a better live stream. Maybe I can talk about different topics. Maybe I can stay on topic. Maybe I don't talk about other NFL teams, which I'm not going to do because in order for my analysis, I'm just giving you guys a rundown, an example, right? There's different things. Maybe the lighting's off. Maybe I can get better lighting. A lot of different things. Tuckley Manila, sorry for butchering your name. I'm just going to say TM. Says, Beast, what's your starting offensive line and why? All right, so this is again, the Beast receipts check out. This is how I see it playing out. Now watch me be wrong. Left side already said it months ago. I said it's going to be Colton Miller at left tackle, John Simpson at left guard, Andre James to start the season. Not saying he's better, but to start the season at offensive center. Right guard, Lester Cotton. Right tackle, Jermaine Illuminor. That's what I have going in. Now, obviously, Jermaine Illuminor didn't come into a play until after Alex Leatherwood was released, or technically that's the wrong term. He wasn't cut or released. He was waived based on accrued NFL seasons. Then he was claimed by the Chicago Bears. All right. So that being said, that's how I see my starting lineup. Now, is that the starting lineup I would use? No, I would honestly, to be honest with you, I would rather have Dylan Parham in there because you didn't draft the guy as your first pick overall to ride the pine. And I think live reps is where you're going to get the most growth, right? I'm more of a doer than like visualizing it, right? I have to feel the power. I have to feel the speed. I have to feel the game, the tempo of the game. I have to feel exactly the techniques that I'm supposed to be coached up to do during practice. Because during practice is a lot different than live reps because you're doing it on a consistent basis on the drive. Whereas in practice, you kind of do a play and then you kind of take a break. You do a play, then that's called installs. Right. So the install process has already been set forth. Right. So the muscle memory and trying to do it consistently and being consistently good at it, that's the next step for Dylan Parham. And I like how they're kind of not giving him the the pass just because he's a third round pick, right? They're not just going to hand him the reins. But at the end of the day, I like to see Dylan Parham in there. I think he's smart. I think he's physical. I think he's tough. And I think ultimately, in the end, he's going to be the starting center or interior guard at one of those positions along the right side, not the left side. John Simpson's going to lock down that left side. Trust me on that. And I asked John Simpson, because I graded him coming out of college. I said, bro, you were highly recruited by Pittsburgh Steelers, bro, a power-based run scheme. And then he's like, and I said, what, like, do you think that's like suits your game? He's like, yeah, man, I'm all about. He didn't say, yeah, man, but he was just basically saying, yeah, I'm a power guy. I prefer playing power. So there you have it. And I see that in this game. I like John Simpson's great. JP Edward Didio says, all that weapons on offense, do they complement? Feel like a lot of alphas on that side of the ball. There's a lot of alphas. Look, alphas mean everything. No, I don't know alphas. There's a lot of alphas. You can make that argument about any team with a lot of good players. Alabama, college, a lot of alphas. But having an alpha male mentality is good because it kind of raises each other's game, right? Like if you think you're the best on the team, and then someone says, "Nah, I'm the best," you're by default you're like, "Nah, man, I'm the best. I'm going to show you I'm the best." Okay, iron sharpens iron. Boom, the Raider way. JP Albert Didio says, is Kelsey still the top tight end? No, I'm joking. Of course, Kelsey is still the top tight end in the division. No question about it. Travis Kelsey is a number 2 tight end in the entire NFL. I just keep him 100. It's Travis Kelsey. Like, I'm not going to say he's not the best tight end in the division in the AFC West. Of course he is. He's the number two tight end in the entire NFL behind George Kittle. But why? Because I like George Kittle's inline blocking more than I do Travis Kelsey. Because let's be honest, Travis Kelsey is much used like Kyle Pitts is with the Atlanta Falcons. They don't use him much as an inline blocker, but then again, they don't ask him to do much. But then again, they don't ask him to do much because they can't really do that. But George Kittle can, which is why if I'm going to formulate my team, George Kittle would be my Y receiver. All right. So we have a lot of stuff going on. Orlando says exactly she's aren't the same. Casey Farrell talking that their safety Reed will be as good. Man, Justin Reed is not going to be as good as Tyron. Man, anybody who says that, send them my way. I will set them. Who are you kidding me? Who are you kidding? Bruh. That is a bad take if you think that Justin Reed is going to be just as good as Tyrann Mathieu. That is the biggest joke ever. Nothing to take away from Justin Reed. But he doesn't even sniff Tyrann Mathieu level in my gradings. Oh, get out of here with that. Get out of here with that. How do you think Bilal Nichols, Matthew Butler, Malcolm Coots, or Tashawn Bauer will do this year? All of them are going to do great. They're going to do great. They're going to freaking attack the quarterback, feast on the quarterback, and have a sack lunch. They're going to meet all at one time and have a picnic. Jampo Edward Didio says, the Cardinals like Trayvon Merrick. The scouting team has good safety evaluators. Yep. There you go. And this is from Arizona Cardinals. I'm telling you. Giovanni Perez says, Dark Side of BEASTwriter, can you please explain why we SDSU lost Arizona? Also, the stadium is nice, but no shade, and it was 97. Yes, dang, it was 97 yesterday. I didn't even know about that. I had no idea it was 97 degrees yesterday. Let's get to some of your questions on Facebook. I don't want to miss anyone, and I'm on all these Facebook groups and freaking Facebook pages and Twitter. I didn't even open my Twitter yet. I have some questions on Twitter. I apologize in advance. I'm trying to toggle between these different platforms, and it's really difficult sometimes when you're a one-man show because the questions don't pop up organically. We got some DMs on Twitter. Let's see here. And Twitter does this really interesting thing, which I think is cool. I like how they organize it based on, like, you have your primary, your general, then you have another folder, then you have another folder on top of that folder. I'm not kidding. I'm being serious. People are like, what are you talking about, dude? All right. So when we talk about, thank you, Alzado. Thank you for sending me this on Twitter on some, I appreciate that. All right. So Orlando Padilla says, I was laughing when my cousin was saying that Reed was good as Tyrann Mathieu and their second year was really good. Yeah, no. And then again, Charvarius Ward is now with the San Francisco. Where are we going with this? Like, no. The Kansas City Chiefs secondary is not as good without Tyrann Mathieu than it is. Like, no. What are we doing? Like, that's just a straight fan perspective where they're like, oh, yeah, man. Like, they're just probably eating up everything. Oh, man, PFF says this. Like, my gosh. No, bro. That's not how this game works. It's not how this game works, dude. I'm just saying. You can't do that. That's a bad take. Let me just go ahead and give you a rundown, right? So, like, when I run the grades on Kansas City Chiefs, right, and you see what they did last year compared to this year. All right, so they have Juan Thornhill at strong safety, right? So he's going to be taking, this is Justin Reed's going to be free safety. Tyrann Mathieu, by the way, played strong safety last year, and he was basically a strong safety of the year prior to that too. But you can make the argument they kind of do the mix and match based on the coverage shell that's being asked of them. But whatever. All right, so you have Trent McDuffie, who they got. Obviously, he's a rookie. L'Jarius Sneed, he's all right. Rashad Fenton, yeah. I'm not scared by that secondary. Now, if you talk about the defensive front seven, that's a different story because you have Chris Jones, Carlos Dunlap, Derek Nandi, and Frank Clark. That's one hell of a pass rush right there. And that's on the interior, creating pressure on the interior. Remember, Chris Jones was moved from defensive end back to defensive tackle, his more natural position, and then that's where he shined. And again, how do I know that? Because I have grades on Chris Jones. I run grades on players. Like that's what I do. Like, sorry. I just love watching. And then George Karlatif, right? George Karlaftis or Karlatif, or how do you pronounce his name? That guy from Purdue, ran grades on him. This guy is going to be a sleeper pick, and he, in my estimation, is a double-digit sack artist in waiting. So I like what they have on the defensive front seven. Obviously, Nick Bolton is very sound in coverage. Great at him coming out of college. Willie Gay is, he's all right. But at the end of the day, yeah, their front seven is definitely the strength. It's definitely not the secondary. I'm just going to keep it 100. Chiefs fans who think the opposite, you are doing yourself a disservice because that secondary is not as good as you think it is. It's not. Like that's not even an opinion. It's fact. Like there's no way that without Tyrann Mathieu, they're a better secondary. Oh yeah, that's like saying, oh yeah, well if the Raiders subtracted Max Crosby, then yeah, we are a better defense without Max Crosby than we are with what? Oh no. TM says, give us an under the radar Raider, give us an under the radar Raider beast. Give us an under the radar Raider who will surprise in 2022. Under the radar, Bilal Nichols. He's under the radar because no one's talking about him much. The only reason I talk about him is because I ran grades on him and I know what he brings to the table. So I'm going to say Bilal Nichols, plain and simple. Now, if you're talking about a special teams ace, right? Because I think you have to talk about all three phases. I want to show special teams some love because Coach McMahon is doing a hell of a job there, teaching proper angles and fundamental techniques there. The new special teams coach with the Las Vegas Raiders. So when you talk about that and you talk about a gunner role or a protector or someone like that, whether it be the personal protector, you look at special teams, which I really love. And in fact, if I'm being quite honest with you, I enjoy watching special teams than I do offense or defense. And the reason I say that is because you can gain more knowledge from watching special teams and how they play their special teams than maybe the other two phases of the game. And with that being said, I really like, if you want to talk about under the radar, I really like Tyron Johnson. I think Tyron Johnson and DJ Turner are going to turn some heads. No pun intended. TJ Turner are going to turn some heads. But no, I like both those guys. I think those guys can be gunners. I think those guys can be good coverage unit guys. And I think those guys can really make an impact in affecting field position. As you guys know, as it gets closer to the end of the year, field position, as always, is of the utmost importance outside of, turnovers, winning that turnover battle, winning time of possession, controlling that clock, right? Doing no penalties, right? Doing things that, again, you're not hurting your team, right? And that's what Josh McDaniels is trying to coach. And when I look at specific individual players, I can kind of gauge which players are understanding the Raider way and maybe which are needing a little bit more coaching, teaching, preaching, if you will. To me, when it comes down to it, DJ Turner and Tyron Johnson just get it. They're just naturally gifted and they're very smart at knowing how to take proper angles. And that same could be said of Amik Robinson, right? I like Amik Robinson and taking proper angles. He's another guy that really no one's talking about. Oh, he can't cover it. I was like, man, did you watch him at Louisiana Tech? This guy has elite ball skills. Did you grade snaps at Louisiana Tech? Because I did. And they asked Meek Robinson, do you play with a chip on your shoulder because you're only 5'8"? You know, you may not be the fastest, you may not be the strongest, but you're definitely not going to get out-muscled. He said, yeah, man, I do play with the chip on. I like that swagger. I like that toughness. I like that competitive drive to compete on every single snap. And again, you have to have a short-term memory if you're playing the slot or the boundary cornerback, because on any given play, you can get beat deep for a touchdown. You got to just erase that from your mind and come back on the next play and fight again. Live to fight another day, or another down in this case. All right, so I think that's going to be wrapping up this live stream. I hope you guys liked what I had to say, because I definitely enjoy talking to all of you guys. And again, I just wanted to hop on this Sunday live stream. I know there wasn't much going on today out in my life because, you know, this is my life. I'm joking. I actually went to the gym, but I cut my workout short again because I felt like I had to give you guys some insight on exactly what to look forward to with those unrestricted free agents when it comes to rounding about the AFC West. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this live stream. I hope you guys liked what I had to say. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And again, drop your comments after this video concludes, because a lot of you guys watch this video after it concludes, and tell me your feedback on exactly what you liked, what you didn't like, or if you have any questions for my next live stream, go ahead and put those in the description box in the comment section below. I will go ahead and copy and paste that up and forward those to my new live stream, and then we will go ahead and talk about those topics as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys all had a wonderful Sunday Pick 6 live stream. I know I did. Stay tuned for the next one. That's it for now. BEASTwriter out.